Hello everyone and welcome back to this week's episode of the Propulsion Swimming Podcast. And on this week's episode, we are heading stateside as we speak to one of the most exciting young backstroke prospects that British swimming is going to have over the next few years, Jonny Marshall.
Yeah, we've been saying for a while that Team GB's weakest leg on the men's 4x1 medley is the backstroke leg, and today we're speaking to someone who we believe may have his name in the hat to be selected for a spot in future international meets as his performances seem to be getting better and better.
Yeah, and not just that backstroke leg in the relay, I'm just very interested to hear what it is like to train stateside over in America as a kid who's come through the high school system. So let's have a listen for what's to come on this week's episode.
So I think a lot of my learning is to do with, where I am compared to the guys that are, cruising along on that last 25 and kind of where I have to spend my energy, spend my legs, and really, get in with the turnover in comparison to those guys. So I wouldn't say that they're, reaching out and saying, hey, do this, but I'm taking notes on how they swim their races. Walking into Loughborough the first time, and Adam says to me, "Oh, what's your name? And what do you go on the 100 backstroke?" And I'm like, "Oh, 55." He's like, mate, that's just not fast enough. I'm like, "Oh, I'm 17. Adam, give me a break here.
We need a 52.
Right, we need a 52.9. I'm like, all right, I'll be there.
So over the next few weeks from Propulsion Swimming, we are going to start leading in and previewing British champs. And we are going to be previewing it with you guys at home with some amazing senior swimmers who are looking to make a mark up in Sheffield. But before we jump into this week's podcast, I think Propulsion Swimming would like to say a massive congratulations to the two winners of the National Arena Swim League finals, Basildon Phoenix and Millfield. I was there poolside, and I have to say, Dan, that was the loudest poolside I have ever experienced in my life. And it wasn't just the swimmers. The parents were, I use the word mental, but they were. I'd say kudos to day one. Day one was louder from the parents. Day two was rowdier from the swimmers. But I think that's what you get when you get the Millfield Kellys of the world racing against your Guildfords. Incredible spectacle and everything that is great about British swimming. I thoroughly loved it. So I thought we'd start the podcast with a shout out for that meet because it was just a privilege to be poolside.
Yeah, it's great when everyone gets involved. You get the parents, you get the coaches, you get the swimmers all
get the flags,
cheering for their team. The flags are waving. And this is the reason why those sort of meets need to be happening more in this country, because it makes the spectacle of the swimming just look amazing. And it was loud. Some of the footage that we've been putting out and will be putting out later on in the weeks to come, it's loud and it's brilliant. I can't wait for next year's now.
Absolutely. So let's jump straight into this week's podcast where we, like we said in the intro, are speaking to Jonny Marshall, who is a backstroker who has represented Britain for the first time last summer, but he has had his whole swimming education, let's say, over in the States, in the state of Ohio. So please welcome on to this week's podcast a backstroke swimmer that we should all be watching out for, and one that is very interestingly based out in the States, Jonny Marshall. Now, Jonny, thank you for joining us this week. How are you doing? You're a little sunburnt.
Yeah, I'm a little sunburned. I'm fresh off the TYR Pro Swim down in Fort Lauderdale, and I'm doing well. Just here training for champs. Got practice a little bit after this, but just had school earlier today. Came home to do your guys' podcast, and I'll be back off to the pool. So
Oh, very nice. Keep him busy. Keep him busy.
Yeah.
Always.
So for those who don't know the name Jonny Marshall, then let's help them get to know you a little bit better. So you made your senior debut for GB at the European Champs last summer in Rome. But as hopefully everyone can hear, there's a massive American twang to your accent. So where is it in the States you're currently out training, and why have you chosen to represent GB?
Yeah, I hope my accent isn't too annoying, but I know I get a lot of teases on the team about it. But I live in Ohio, Akron, Ohio. So very Midwest. Not a ton going on in my state. A city's only known for being the home of LeBron James. So, it's regular American life, but the reason that I swim for Team GB my mom actually came over on scholarship to swim for the University of Cincinnati. She had trained with Mike Higgs for most of her upbringing in swimming, and then she, went to the University of Cincinnati, met my father, and they had me. So, and my dad was also swimming there as well. My mom was 4 a.m. to fly, and my dad was a little bit more of a sprint breaststroker. So I didn't inherit either of those, thankfully. Bad. But yeah.
Oh, wow. I mean, I have to say that the club that you represent right now has possibly one of the best names that we've potentially ever heard. Firestone Acron Swimming Club. Sounds amazing. How have they helped you in your development and facilitated you competing for GB?
Yeah, so FAST, Firestone Akron Swim Team, that's the acronym for it. And when I was over at Champs, they had never seen anything like it. I think the presenter there just made up an acronym like yeah. Fort Worth Area Swim Team or something. But it's a great club. It's quite small. It's not like most of the American clubs that you will see that are drawing from whole states and kind of having these big clubs like Swim Mac, the Sarasota Sharks, the Sandpipers. It's not anywhere, I'd say, near that, but it does have a lot of reputation. Because back in the day, we also have high school season in America, right? So I swim for my Firestone High School, and we were national champs in 2000 and 2002. So we've had some really good guys come through the program. Likes being Mark Gangloff, who is a gold medalist for Team USA, and now he is the head coach of University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. So he's doing quite well. And my coach that I have now also coached Mark back in the day. So she's been coaching for a while. She's brought up many talents, SEC champions, state champions. So it's a great program to be a part of. I think a lot of my training is kind of racing the clock. I don't have crazy training partners. I mean, I love the guys on my team, but it's not like we're throwing down crazy stuff every day. That
you got that to come.
Yeah. Got that to come at Florida, but I think my coaches have been very supportive of my decision to go with Team GB. And I mean, my decision, it kind of was always like in the background of my mind, when I was growing up. I didn't really start swimming competitively until I was about 10. And then I think I kind of broke through when I was about 13, 14, got like pretty good, right? And then, the closer I came to, making the team, I was kind of in the back of my head like, well, maybe get my dual citizenship and, I might be able to swim for Team GB. But I think the reason I chose to go with Team GB really is because, you can look at some great American talent and like Carson Foster, right? Really good. And he goes to trials in 2021, American trials, which I was actually at. And he swims there. He just has an off weekend and he gets third, right, in the 4 a.m. And, that's still a great time, right? But it's just, if you're not top two, it's very set. Like, you're not
cutthroat,
cutthroat. Very, very cut, very dry in America. And it's, if you're not top two, you're not going type of thing. And then it's interesting because Carson Foster then swims through the summer at Texas, and he swims at some sectional meet at the end of the summer after the Olympics have happened and goes a time that would have won the Olympic final, right?
Yeah, I remember
it's kind of just, there's not really as harsh of an end-all, be-all. There's some, leniency in GB, but also, I probably don't have to go 52 low, 51 high to make the team. Is another part
that's true.
of it.
That is true.
But, I think it harbors a different attitude. I'm not saying that GB is, a worse team or anything. I'm just saying that it's just a different attitude to how they go about, selecting teams and what happens,
So it was kind of like you were trying to give yourself the best chance to further your career and get onto these international stages,
Yes.
and get to race these international fields essentially.
Exactly. And I was selected for, or I was invited to some American junior teams, and I declined after I made the British one, because I had decided
no wavering whatsoever.
Okay.
Yeah, no room. I was set on going to Romania, and went fast. So.
Very
Oh,
good.
nice.
So if we talk about international racing then, so you're straight off the back of this weekend's TYR Pro Series in Fort Lauderdale. How would you rate your performances this weekend? I think you went is it a 55.05 in the finals?
I was
the 100
55.05 at the finals. I was 54.8 in the prelim, which was pretty good compared to the rest of the field because I was third.
It's the flags, wasn't it? And the wind.
Yeah. Yes.
Was causing havoc.
But I was third seed. I mean, I think the guys were cruising in the morning, but I was third seed. It was just under Justin Ress, who was 54. He was in my heat in the prelims. He beat me by 0.6, I'd say. And then Ryan Murphy, who he only beat me by a tenth. So, and then it was, Hunter Armstrong and all them behind me. But, I think it was a great performance for where I am now because really last weekend, the weekend before that was the state tournament for swimming. So it's a very much shortened version of swimming. So the meet, the Ohio State meet, you start at sectionals, right? And the meet is probably 4 hours long. You're swimming 4 events in those 4 hours, right? So you'll do the relay, you'll do 2 relays and 2 individual events. So I swam,
fire, then.
2 free, and then 2 free relay. Directly after the 2 free relay, right into the 100 backstroke. Then it goes 100 breast, which I didn't swim, and then it's right into the 4 free relay. So it's a very quick timeline, and it's kind of just, it's not the greatest format for really fast swimming, but it's just who's gritty, who's gritty enough to, push through at the end. So you go to sectionals the first weekend. If you make top 24 there, you go to districts. If you make top 24 there, then you're at the state meet. And so, I have the pleasure of being in a very fast swim state. Scotty Buff, who's the top recruit in my class, I raced him in the 100 back. And, I won the state title, but he had swam the 100 fly about an hour before and, set a high school national record. So, little grain of salt on that one. But, we just do have a very deep swim state. 4 of the top 10 recruits for college recruiting live in Ohio, our seniors in Ohio. So me, Gibson Holmes, Scotty, and Hudson Williams. So it's a very, very fast field compared to the other 49 states.
It must help you. It must help you for the future to set you up with these sort of high standard in the state. I mean, you've already mentioned the names we're going back to the TYR series of Justin Ress, Hunter Armstrong, and Ryan Murphy. What was it like to race those guys? Because they are, I'd say, probably the top 3 backstrokers, give or take, in America right now. What was that like?
Yeah. I mean, I had I'm fortunate enough, Hunter Armstrong is from Ohio, so I kind of had a connection with him. Before that, he was trying to recruit me to go to Ohio State back in the day during my recruiting process. But also during my recruiting process, I went on an official visit to Cal Berkeley where Ryan Murphy trains, and he was super nice to me there. We got to talk and whatnot, and he was making jokes about Akron only being known for the home LeBron, and so he's a really nice guy. Yeah. But they're all really well-intended guys. You think of them as big and scary, but it really is. They're just other dudes, and it's like that at every I'd say, level of the sport. It's just guys that have this camaraderie because we're a part of a smaller sport. So it's not like you really hate your competitor because you share such a similar interest that's quite niche. But I mean, to race those guys, it's it's something else.
Bucket list stuff. That
Yeah.
Are you managing to like get any lessons off them? Are they giving you any advice moving forwards?
Yeah, I mean, Hunter's he was really, really nice to me. He's like, dude, once you get to college, it's going to be a whole different game. I'm not very muscular and big like Ryan and Hunter are. And I don't have that tempo that Hunter has on that last 25. That new wave of backstroke that's coming to the forefront of elite swimming with the high tempo on the last 25 really is like really going to take over the stroke, I think. With the likes of like Kuzvari Masiuk from Poland, Hunter Armstrong, kind of revolutionizing the way the 100 back is swam. So I think a lot of my learning is to do with, where I am compared to the guys that are, cruising along on that last 25 and kind of where I have to spend my energy, spend my legs, and really, get in with the turnover in comparison to those guys. So I wouldn't say that they're, reaching out and saying, hey, do this, but, I'm taking notes on how they swim their races.
It almost sounds like you're kind of having to be patient in like the development of your career. So you're saying like, okay, your training squad now, it's great, you love it there, but there's no one to race against, and you're saying you haven't got the frame yet, which it's like you're producing very good times. You made senior squad for GB, and yet there feels like there's another like a big step to go when you go off to college. Is it a case of like you're really happy where you are right now, but you know there's loads more to come?
Yeah, I think if you look at, stars that are stars when they're 16, right? Bella Sims, for example, my future teammate at Florida. She goes to Sandpipers, they're homeschooled, and their whole life is swimming. And I that's beautiful. You make an Olympic team, right? Like you're doing way better than I am. But I think that, there's another side to elite swimming on the high school level, which there's some kids that swim their whole life and they go to homeschool and then they go to a 2-hour practice and then they do more homeschool and then they go to another 2-hour practice and they have these terrible grueling sets and whatnot. But there's guys like Scotty Buff and I and the rest of the guys that swim high school in Ohio that we wake up, catch a morning lift, catch a morning swim for maybe an hour, go to school, regular high school movie, American high school dream, right? And then come back to the pool after class is over and swim another 2 hours, and I'm not saying that we don't put in good work, because I would say that, we work hard as a team, but I don't think that it's really the amount of dedication that I will have in college. Just being a part of that bigger group, having my nutrition controlled, actually, lifting in a good program, and kind of streamlining my progress, I'd say.
It's kind of increasing your team, because you'll no doubt have a physio, you'll have a nutritionist, like you said, you've got probably numerous coaches on poolside, you'll have your S&C coach as well. So it's that I suppose that's the next level for you, would be then to fill out your frame, add a bit of strength and power into your backstroke, which obviously you say you've probably learnt to increase your stroke rate for the last 25, and with that extra bit of strength and power, that will surely be the thing to lead you on to the next level then.
Right. And then the other thing that I forgot to mention about my performance in Fort Lauderdale is I haven't swam long course meters since Europeans. So that was kind of a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I've only been training short course yards since then.
Okay.
So I really went in there with no expectations.
Yeah.
I was like, this will be great if I go 55.
How is that jump from yards to long course meters?
That is, a very tough transition. I'd say especially practice-wise, just because you're actually swimming so much more. And I don't say that in the sense of like, obviously, 100 meters is longer than 100 yards, but the way that short course yard swimming is right now, underwaters are essential. And we're going 15 meters every wall, right? And then I'm getting 6 backstroke strokes into the wall, turn, flip out, 10 kicks underwater, 6 strokes again, and repeat. So comparatively to long course, where I'm taking maybe 26, 28 strokes a 50, I mean, it's a lot more actual swimming, which for me is good because, compared to some of these American sprinters, I don't have, the most shocking underwaters. I mean, they're good. They hold up, right? But they're not anything to, ponder the excellence of, like Caleb Dressel, Jordan Crooks, Scotty Buff. I mean, they all have amazing underwaters. But yeah.
So going back to Fort Lauderdale, you went there obviously with your team in America, but there was also a British swimming team out there as well. Did you get any sort of crossover communication or feedback from both sides?
Well, yeah. So I actually wasn't with my team. It was just me. Okay. So because we don't have a very deep squad. It was just me. My coach was not there, but I had the Sarasota coach kind of looking over me. But I obviously communicated with my coach via text. I had some words here and there from GB coaches, that I've met in the past. But really, like I roomed with Jamie Ingram when I was at one of our camps for Team GB. Matt Richards and I are pretty good friends from Europeans, as well as Greg Butler, because when I train in England, I'm there at Loughborough with Mel and
the Mel squad.
The Mel squad there with Jacob Whittle and all them. So yeah, it's I mean,
so you
I
had
wasn't
some
really
friendly faces.
had some friendly faces for sure, and Florida recruits as well, and my Florida coach that recruited me, Mark Sharanik's brother, is one of the Florida coaches, so I talked with him a little bit as well. Along with the Florida pro group that was there, kind of introduce myself, say hi, but when it's the likes of Kieran Smith and Natalie Hines, you kind of feel a bit intimidated by them, but it's pretty cool.
That's quite a good connection then that you're going to have over in Florida in terms of kind of like training at the Gators, but also racing in the UK, because Mark Shranik has done it his whole career, essentially.
Exactly.
His whole pro career. So
yes.
Was that almost a little bit of the reasoning about why you wanted to go to Florida?
I wouldn't say so, just because there's so many other unis that have had, British coaches, British guys on the team. Sebastian Somerset was my roommate at Europeans. He swims at Cal. They have a new coach there that's British. Is it Matt? Blanking on his last name. Coach of Hunter Armstrong and of
I know exactly.
Ian Hancock.
I can't think of it off the top of me.
Yeah. He was at OSU at the time I was being recruited, so I definitely was considering the relationships that different programs had with GB, but I would say that so many of my top choices had that connection that it wasn't the defining characteristic of Florida that was making me go there. I think what was making me go there was the Southeastern Conference, the SEC, the way that they treat their athletes, with athlete-only dining halls and, physios, for days and just the way that they treat their athletes is
I was going to say it's
amazing.
more athlete focused then over there than you'd say over here.
I would say definitely. But also, the coaching, Anthony Nesty, I'd say, is probably one of the best coaches in the world, or one of the best coaches to ever do it. And he also, has a connection with kind of swimming for a country that isn't the U.S., right? Because he won a gold medal in '88, I believe, for Suriname, in the 100 fly. So he also has a connection to not swimming for the U.S. and how kind of other organizations run their teams. So I think it was a combination of kind of everything, and it was kind of just the perfect fit. Because when you look at what decision you want to make, I think you got to consider your biggest goal, which I was like, I want to make an Olympic team. And I think, Florida kind of had the best shot at, so I think that was kind of this is the program that's going to make me perform at my highest level, I think was the big defining characteristic.
I kind of hate to ask this question because I know they are, well, certainly on a weather front, not comparable. But no thoughts of ever to come over and train in Loughborough, or was it very much, I'll stick outside and the sun in Florida?
I don't think it was that much of a consideration, just because I had already committed to Florida the time that Mel kind of reached out to me. She had actually swam against my mom back in Great Britain, so they had that connection there, and my mom followed her on Facebook and whatnot. But when she contacted me last year around this time to swim at trials, then she hinted at like, oh, maybe you want to come train with me in Loughborough, and I was kind of already committed to Florida, so I wasn't really giving it much thought. But I think the other thing is that when I went to Loughborough, and this isn't, insult to Loughborough and how they do things, it's just that it's very individual,
Okay.
Jacob will do his own practice, Peter will do his own practice, Greenbank will do his own practice. And I feel like where I am right now, being an American 18-year-old, I need other guys that are doing the same practices as me, living in the same dorms as me, to really bring out the best of myself.
I get that. And you get to race as a team at NCAAs, which is like, it's a bucket list event, that, isn't it? Yeah. So you're still a year away from racing at the NCAAs, but I just said it's a bucket list event. Why is it such a big event, and why does everyone in the States, well, I tell you what, not even the States, worldwide, want to compete at that meet?
I think that, if you look at different events, right, or if you look at the different courses, right, so long course meters, obviously the peak event would be the Olympics. Short course meter, short course meter worlds. Short course yards, it would be the NCAA tournament. And I think it's a bucket list event, and it's so much louder and crazier in there because people have such dedication to their unis in America. Like, you think of the NFL, the football fans here are crazy. I don't know if they're crazy as the, English football fans on your guys' side, but people do have that dedication to the university that they went to. So obviously me going to Florida, I'm a Florida football fan, but also people will be Florida everything fans. So Florida tennis is on, I'm rooting for that. Florida swimming is on, I'm rooting for them, right? So there's also alumni that come through the program that'll come all the way back or come out to NCAAs just to watch and cheer for their team. So it's not just parents and teammates in the stands of the NCAA finals. It's also, alumni and people like that want to come watch some seriously fast swimming because it is pretty quick.
Yeah, it's like it's tribal, isn't it? That's kind of how I describe it.
Yes,
it's a
for
little
sure.
bit like that. Yeah. So if you give us a little bit of stateside knowledge, then who are the standouts to watch out for at this year's NCAAs?
And no Florida bias.
Okay, I'll give you what I know, right?
All right.
Okay.
Cal Berkeley, they're the reigning champs from last year. And they have a very deep squad. But this past weekend at Pac-12s, they were beaten by ASU with the Sun Devils. Of course, leading their charge was Leon Marchand, who you might have
I've heard of it.
Shattering NCAA records like it's his business. And at a time he had the top 7 times, or he had 7 top times in respective events, like 4 IM, 2 IM, 500 meter, 100 backstroke, 200 breast. So he's like real. And Bob Bowman is saying this is the first person I've seen to come close to Michael in training. So that's a pretty big deal. The only thing with ASU is that they aren't as deep as other schools are. Texas, one of the best programs in history, won probably the most NCAA. They have won the most NCAA titles. You know, they have guys like Carson Foster, Jake Foster as well, some crazy distance guys. But they just have a really, really deep team. You know, they'll have 25 guys qualify for NCAAs, but you're only allowed to bring 18, right? So they just have a very, very deep team. So they're always in contention. Florida as well has a very deep team. There is a lot of hype around the class that's coming in for my class because it consists of, I think, 4 top 20 recruits and, you know, a bunch of other very, very fast swimmers. But this year they're also holding their own, and they're definitely one to look out for. We have great diving on our side as well. I shouldn't say our because I want to avoid bias, but they have diving on their side as well, which is pretty interesting because, you know, diving is also scored in the NCAA. It's swimming and diving, you know, unsimilar to, you know, World Championships where there's not like an overall score of like who won artistic swimming and who won, you know. It's not really like that on the world stage, but in the States, diving does count. So it's pretty important as well.
Where's your money going?
I mean, I gotta stay home on Florida, but I'm very interested, to say the least, to see what is going to go down with ASU versus Cal, because Cal did DQ a relay on the first day of Pac-12s, and I feel like that might have kind of killed their vibe, killed their momentum. Yeah. So, I think I want to say between Florida and ASU, but Texas and Cal are also very good teams. So, who's to say?
So, if we preview then the biggest meet over this side of the pond in the next few months, I think it's a month and a half away now? No, a month away. British Champs. One of our races to watch, and one we have certainly got circled, is the 100 meters backstroke. How close do you think you can get in securing that world selection spot?
I think I'm going to be training long course for a month before this. Obviously, I'd love to make the world team. I think I have the capability to do so. You know, and I've swam overseas now 3 times at this time. Last year, going to this meet, I'd never, you know, came over the pond and swam. So I think I'm a little bit more comfortable now. You know, I'd never been to Sheffield or anything. I'd never seen Ponds Forge. I think I'm a little bit more confident, you know, walking in the door there, especially being on the GB team. People will, you know, I'll have friendly faces around.
Yeah.
I think I definitely strive, you know, kind of joking around with guys behind the blocks and not taking myself too seriously. But I think that, you know, I think I can do well there. You know, if I don't, I think that the 23 and under European
the LEN Cup?
the LEN Cup. I think that, you know, if I don't make the world team, that's also a very viable option for me to make.
Definitely.
So you know, I'll see what happens, but I think that I'll be a bit more on form than I was last year, because last year coming into British Champs, I think I'd only swam a week of long course. This time I'll have a month. Kind of be able.
Quite enough, is it? Yeah.
I
mean, what part of your swim do you think will help you get on a spot on that team?
Part of my swim, I'm really looking to just lay off my legs in the first 50 and kind of, you know, try to get in churn and burn on that last 50. Mel always talks about breaking it up into thirds. So first third, no legs. Second third, kind of bring them in, hit that second underwater pretty well, and break out with some good speed. And then when you see that 25-meter string, then it's all you can give. So I think that if I execute well, I think it'll go well.
Nice. Now we before we kind of end this podcast, we've talked a lot about your own individual swims and your own kind of individual aspirations in the 100 back, but there's obviously a relay spot in the men's medley relay for GB. So does that come into play at all in your mind, or do you just focus on you and what happens from there is bonus?
Yeah, I mean, I can't control what other guys are doing, obviously, on the relay. But I have had conversations with Adam and Mel about, potential spots. And I think that's kind of Mel's first priority right now is getting a fast backstroker. And,
it's the one weaker leg right now.
The
right.
weakest,
and,
isn't it?
Yeah, it is definitely the weakest leg. But, walking into Loughborough the first time and Adam says to me, "Oh, what's your name? And what do you go in the 100 backstroke?" And I'm like, "Oh." He's like, mate, that's just not fast enough. I'm like, "Oh, I'm 17. Don't give me a break here.
We need a 52."
Right, we need a 52.9. I'm like, "All right, I'll be there. Don't worry.
No pressure.
Oh, I know, instant pressure from Adam there. Wow.
That's kind of how he is though as a guy. That's why he's a champion. He's very type A, kind of go after and get it. When we were at that relay camp, I was in a lane with him. It was me, him, and Jimmy, and then I think a guy from Manchester. And we were in this lane. There was two options. There was like this stroke technique option of a set, and then this hard 10 200s 2 times with fins. And Adam's like, "All right, we're doing the second one." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "No, that's what's going to make us better." And I was like, "Okay, we're doing it then." So we threw down there, but it was kind of that Adam has a philosophy that he's talking about to me that there's always two options in life, and one's going to make you better, and one not so much. And you kind of got to pick that option if you want to be the best. So it's an interesting way of going about things, but it also obviously works. Works for some.
Definitely. Yeah.
It's a good mentality to kind of expose you as a young swimmer to, definitely.
Yeah.
But Jonny, it's been a lot of fun on this podcast. We do usually finish with some really quick fire questions for our guests.
Okay.
We'll rattle through them before you have to go off to training. So what is your favorite event in swimming?
50 backstroke.
Who is your swimming idol?
Laszlo Shea.
Oh, love that.
Oh, great shout.
I love that. What's your proudest moment in swimming so far?
4 medley relay junior Europeans.
Nice. What's the hardest set you've ever done in training?
Oh, Lakeside 200s, which is like a building 200 set where you're going, 200 back pace. So that's a pretty hard one. That
Tough, yeah.
And final question is a little bit away from swimming, but helps to get to know you a little bit better away from the pool. If you can go on a road trip, there's 3 spaces in the car. You can take friends, family, celebrities, whoever you want. Who would you take with you?
Next to me, if I'm driving, next to me, probably my best friend, Daniel Green, who's just, a buddy of mine from swimming. I'd probably also take Scotty Buff, my frenemy, biggest rival, but also a great friend of mine. And then third, I would probably take Jacob Whittle's a viable option, So that's
nice.
One of my good friends from GB. So yeah,
nice. So it's a car full of friends.
Car full of friends, for sure. Yeah. I don't want strangers in there. You never can.
Nice stuff. Well, Jonny, thank you so much for coming on to this week's episode of the Propulsion Swimming Podcast. Best of luck over the next few weeks, months as you get ready for champs, and hopefully we'll see you on poolside at Ponds Forge at some point.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, best of luck. Hopefully the sunburn recovers quite quickly, but it looks like it's quite sunny
probably
out
will.
there. So
Yeah, I recently shaved my head, so I also got a little scalp burn as well. But that's just part of the tradition out here in the States. But
That's Dan's speciality, that.
yeah,
what a sunburn!
sure.
Not on top of the head though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, listen. Best of luck. You got a month long long course training, and then we'll hopefully see you on poolside and champs.
Yeah, hopefully. I'll see you guys then. Thank you so much.
So Dan, always good to speak to a Brit stateside. We've had a few on this podcast before. Mason Wilby, we spoke to him before the Commonwealth Games, help people get to know him a little bit better. We've spoken to Alicia Wilson, who obviously hails from Guildford. And now Jonny Marshall, who... a very exciting prospect to have him signed up, and he has represented the senior team before at European Champs, but I kind of feel like there's a massive step to come. Like he's doing well, and there is a lot of, we said it on last week's podcast with Barry Aldrich, there's a lot of depth in 100 back just at that 17 to 19-year-old range. But the fact that he's training by himself and he's going to Florida, where there is essentially he's becoming a pro swimmer and he's not lifted weights before, there's a huge progression to make, which is exciting.
It is exciting. I think that there's a lot of potential with him. He was sort of saying that he's still got this kind of slight frame for a swimmer, especially when he was racing the likes of Ryan Murphy and Hunter Armstrong. He would probably look tiny next to those guys.
Everyone would look tiny next to Ryan Murphy.
I know, he is a monster, isn't he? It's very interesting that right now in his amazingly clubbed name of Firestone Akron, that he, or Fast is actually how we should be pronouncing it, he is basically training by himself, which is very interesting. So he's going as fast as he is off his own back, and he's racing the clock. I think as soon as he makes that transition to Gators in Florida, where he's got almost unlimited amount of training partners, and then he's got the team of the nutritionist, the psychologist, the physio, etc. I think I don't know, the potential could be massive. He might just be the backstroker that the 52 we're looking for. Yeah, it could be.
Well,
it's very exciting.
Let's not write off the rest of the guys that we're going to preview champs very soon. The likes of Robbie Hemmings and Matthew Ward, who both had incredibly good Arena League finals for their respective clubs. But when he was speaking about what's to come and how he's never lifted weights, in my mind, I had this very sharp comparison with Ed Mildred. So Ed was an exceptionally good swimmer at Northampton before he went off to the Bath Senior program. And at Northampton, they held him back. They let him race every event because they didn't want him to specialise. They hadn't put him in a gym. And I think it's now a year on at the Bath National Centre. And he might be one of those ones at champs where we see what a full year in a senior program does. It kind of, I feel like Jonny might be the year behind what Ed's doing, and we might see that progression. Does that comparison make sense to you?
It was, and actually, when we do the preview for British Champs, I will bring up Ed Mildred, because I just think he's been there now 12 months, and it might be his time to shine, and it might be a year too early for Jonny. But then again, if you think of a year's time, that's Paris. I mean, that is absolute pinnacle, isn't it? Yeah, good comparison. I think that's quite a good one, and I think he's excited to go to Florida. You could see the excitement that he wants to race at NCAAs. He wants to race at all these amazing meets and compare himself to the best. He was sort of saying, Ohio is a very competitive state, and he seems to thrive off that. And I think as soon as he goes to Florida, where it's arguably stronger, it's going to be incredible for him. I just think he's got so much potential. But then, of course, we've got Luke and Brody on the backstroke at the moment, who are the top dogs for GB. You've got to knock them off the perch first.
Yeah, it was. He was being very polite about why he chose, or he didn't choose to come to Loughborough. Essentially, he chose Florida first before Loughborough ever came into the picture. But I'm not going to slight Loughborough, because we absolutely love everything that goes on at the Pool of Dreams. We've spoken to Andy Manley and the university setup there. Mel does an amazing job. But if someone said to me, would you rather live in Loughborough or Florida? I know what I'm picking.
Yeah, I mean, I got to be careful, because I'd get sunburnt like he was,
Yes,
badly as well. I'd have to layer up on sun cream all the time. But for me, I agree. It would be quite an easy choice because of the lifestyle. You'd be training outside all the time, I imagine, whereas you can't do that in this country because of the weather. So, yeah.
And he gets to race NCAAs.
Which is a big deal, which, of course, by the time this goes out, is happening next week, if I've got that right, if I've got my dates right in my head. So
we'll see when I edit this.
Yeah.
Hopefully I don't throw you under a bus. Yeah, but effectively, men's 100 backstroke in Britain, it's been a little bit of a sticking point in the medley relay for a little bit too long since your Liam Tancott, Chris Walker-Hebburn, but there is a crop of swimmers now coming through. We spoke to Barry last week, who's leading Robbie's charge. Jonny is one of the guys. I just can't wait for champs now. It's really is. I said it last week. It's circled as much as the 2-3 for me. I'm really excited.
It's just because there's so much more on the line. We get this feeling about the men's 200 individual, the actual race, but it's more than the individual as well, because you have the relay alongside it, and it's the same thing with 100 backstroke. It would be the same for the women as well, because that's quite an interesting race at champs as well. I feel like we're doing a bit of a preview for that before we've actually done the preview for it.
We'll get that. That will
either way,
coming.
it's exciting. Yeah.
That will be coming in a few weeks' time. But that just about rounds up this week's episode of the Propulsion Swimming Podcast. If you haven't subscribed already on our new YouTube channel, please do so, or on any of the podcast providing platforms you are listening to us. If you are listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, why not give us a review? It always helps push this podcast out to a few more people. But Dan, I will see you in 7 days' time.
Yeah, thank you for listening, everyone, and we'll catch you on the next one.
You've been listening to the Propulsion Swimming Podcast with Scott and Dan. We want to thank you for joining us and invite you to subscribe to the show, as well as checking out the Propulsion Swimming YouTube channel for weekly tutorials and videos to get your swimming fix. We will be back next week. Until then, we'll catch you on the next one.